So if I ever wanted to look up and I'm like, well, shoot, why don't I have any money? Well, I'm open that envelope and add up those receipts. And I don't want my children to even go in that hole. I want them
Right.
to learn from the beginning. That's when I talk to the girls about you get your credit, but you don't use it. So I would really like to have housing where I can offer people another chance.
Welcome to the next edition of Conversations with Brent. You met some mentees, you met mentors, you met friends, but now you get to meet one of my special family members, my favorite niece. And everybody else, don't be mad. Y'all know she's my favorite. And I want to welcome Keisha Nicole Allen to Conversations with Brent. How you doing, Nicole?
I'm good. Thanks for having me.
Thank you for doing it. And people don't get confused. Her name is Keisha Allen, but because I'm Uncle B, I get the privilege of calling her Nicole if I feel like it. So,
Yes.
so let's start with some of the obvious.
Okay.
People always ask if we're related, if you know me, if I know you, and it's funny because if people seen a picture of my mother, your grandmother, you all look like splitting images. I think you put a picture on Facebook one day and somebody said, how'd you do that old time picture?
Actually, when I first met my husband when we were dating, he came over and I had it on the mantle and he said, "Oh, where'd you go to get that picture taken to make it look real old?" I said, "Because it's not me." So he was amazed by that.
And then Keisha has a son, well, two sons and a daughter, and her son,
Mhm.
Kashan, her oldest, people would ask her, what's that?
I have three sons.
Oh, I forgot about D'Angelo. My bad, D. Don't hurt me, man. I'm sorry. Kashan, people would ask if that was my son or if he was related. And so anybody that knows the Millers know we have strong family genes. So
Hmm.
this series is about finance, and anybody that knows Nicole, we call her the spreadsheet queen. And how did you get that name?
Um, I'm trying to think, how did it first happen? I think it's just because as a single mom, I had so much to organize in my life, finances. One time I think I went out of town and I had to coordinate like who was going to do childcare and there are
Right.
special events and things. So I said, what's the easiest way to make sure that my organization transfers to other people so they know what needs to be done and when? So the spreadsheet. I think a lot of my friends would most likely know me for the budget spreadsheet and the Christmas spreadsheet, which is
And
both based off of financial need, actually.
so let's break those down because since this is somewhat of a finance series,
Okay.
you've taught me and so many others the importance of tracking your finances. And there's a little running joke in your household that your husband has never lived this good before in his life, according to your spreadsheet. So let's
Yeah.
break down your spreadsheets and what they do for you.
Okay. So basically, every expense I have is on the spreadsheet, no matter how big and small, my nails, hair, could it be sports fees, barbershop, nails, all that. So everything goes into the spreadsheet. So there's formulas that add up the total of expenses per paycheck and
Mhm.
then the total remaining. And then I make sure that I subtract as part of the formula to make sure I'm not overspending out of that check.
Right.
So each column adds up and subtracts and gives me those numbers at the bottom. And what I do that way, I also have a percentage to make sure I'm spending the equal percentage out of each paycheck.
Hmm.
So that way, if I see, okay, maybe my first check of the month, I'm spending, I don't know, we'll just say a number 20, I have 20% left. But my
Right.
second check, I only have 5%. So that tells me, okay, I need to reallocate some things. And I look at the due dates. That's part of the spreadsheet too. So say it says car note in parentheses, I have the due date.
Right.
So that tells me based on my paychecks and the percentages at the bottom, do I want to pay my car note with the first check or the second check based on when they fall?
Okay.
And then as far as the mortgage, I do the same thing. And maybe I put up part of the mortgage out of each check. And then my husband works for a school district and they get paid once a month. So I also factor that in as part of the overall equation. And I try to make it sure we both have the same percentage. I call it fun money. He laughs
Right.
at me. The leftover. Savings is automatically taken out before we get paid. That goes into a separate account.
Right.
With no checks, no cards to it. It just goes there magically before I even see it. Because I don't want to be responsible for putting it there.
Right.
But yeah, so just doing it that way kind of helps me plan. And or say we want to go on a vacation, I'll add that as a line in the spreadsheet. So as I'm planning, okay, I need to put up 50 for the vacation here, 100 here, 150 there. I also budget things in like car registration fees,
Right.
things that come up that you know are going to happen. I budget in Christmas, starting the first paycheck in October, sometimes September. I'll start budgeting in Christmas as well to make sure I don't overspend.
And, people may say, man, how do you keep all these numbers and stuff? So do you keep receipts? When you first got started doing your spreadsheets, what was like step one, step two, kind of the process?
Okay, well, I'll back up before I even got to the spreadsheets. What I would do is I would sit down and basically do a spreadsheet on paper, and I had envelopes. I did old
Okay.
school envelopes.
Okay.
Cash my paycheck, and then I'd have on the outside of each envelope what my budget was. And as I spent, I put the receipts back in the envelope. So if I ever wanted to look up and I'm like, well, shoot, why don't I have any money? Well, I'm open that envelope and add up those receipts. And it adds up to that number on the outside. And that tells me, okay, I need to adjust some things.
Okay, good
So then I
deal.
just translated that to a spreadsheet.
And so it's so important for people to track their money. And we know that you've started out as a single mother. Like you said, you did your spreadsheets to make sure kids were taken care of, bills were taken
Mhm.
care of. You've been married, what, about how many years now?
9.5.
9.5. But one of the things that people may not know is that you're a mother to your sister who's considerably younger, your brother who's considerably younger, your niece. And one thing that, excuse me, one thing that I found real interesting is Deja, who is your niece, bought her first house at 20.
Mm-hmm.
And you have people that are in their 30s and 40s and 50s have not been able to buy a house. Then, because we're such a competitive family, Kasar, your daughter's like, oh, well, I'm gonna buy my first house. Was she even 19 or had she just
No,
turned
she was
19?
18 years old.
She was at 18 when she bought her first house.
Mm-hmm.
So how'd you help them? Because we know you got to have credit and all this. So how'd you help them to get in position to buy a house at 18 and 20?
Well, the first thing I did was talk to them. Basically, they were both very interested in credit, finances, and I think with Deja, it happened when she was in her apartment, and she was telling me how much she's paying in rent, and she's like, you know what, I feel like I'm throwing my money away, and
Right.
so we sat down and we looked on the computer, like Zillow or those sites like that that actually show you how much a house would cost, and
Right.
we built a sample spreadsheet. And I remember her telling me that when I first did her spreadsheet, when she moved into her apartment, she literally printed it out and hung it on her door because she said that kind of kept her mind in check on her spending. And then when she was ready to buy her house, we did the same thing. We ran the numbers, put it in the spreadsheet, and she realized like, okay, maybe I'm not going to spend as much on my hair and nails, but I'm going to be a homeowner.
Right.
As far as credit, one of the things I learned that a friend of mine told me was that use your good credit history to help your children. It doesn't cost you a dime. I added the girls to my existing credit card accounts.
Mm-hmm.
And so my good payment history became their payment history.
Yep. I
Um,
forget what it's called. Is it tagline or something like that? I can't remember the exact term. But yeah,
mhm.
we have to do that. And Keisha is funny because, and not that we're discriminating, but our counterparts, the lighter counterparts of us, they do these things for their kids. They
Right.
teach their kids. I remember I worked at a machine shop and this guy was 21 and he had 5 houses. And I'm like, how in the world you buy 5 houses at 21? And he
Right.
told me his grandmother always acquired property, but she did a survivorship deed. And me, I'm
Mm.
saying, what's a survivorship deed? Because, we don't talk about that stuff in the
Right.
African American community. We don't know. And he said, well, instead of putting it in the will, she put me on the deed so that when she passed, I was the survivor and the house automatically reverted to me without going through probate or anything else. And I'm like, these are the things when we talk about African Americans and other Black and brown people being disenfranchised, these are the things. There's loopholes and tricks and stuff that our
Mm-hmm.
counterparts know that we don't. But then they say, "Oh, it's just this easy," and sometimes it's not. What would you say was the hardest thing for you? Was it be adjusting your mindset or just the discipline? Because we have a lot of people that listen that say, I want to buy a house or I want to do this. What can you give them that will help them to get started?
I would, there's several things. Number one, be educated about what's on your credit. There may be things you didn't know are on there. I found some errors that I had to fight to get
Hmm.
taken on. Um, Also, there were some things that there were very small amounts, but it doesn't matter how big the amount is. If it's negative, it's negative. So
Right.
I remember this was in the days before you can get it online and everything. I mailed off and got a copy of it. And I literally sat there with a pen and a highlighter, called each one, either made payment plans to get it taken care of, or I paid it off, or, disputed it and I made my notes. Then I'd check again, I'd order another credit report, compare it to the first one. If not, we're gonna do the same process all over until things were taken care of. But to answer your other question, I think it is mindset because, like you said, so you're young, you're 18 years old, you get this credit card, say they give you a $500 limit. In your mind, oh, I can go spend $500. And that was my initial mindset. I still remember I was at Xavier and they let them set up in the cafeteria. Well, I just went around applying for every card they offered. Well, I got approved because I was a blank slate. So
Right.
my mind, shopping spree. But then when those bills came in, it was like, oh, so I dug myself into a hole. Then as I dug out, and then that's when I learned about the 30% rule. And I said, I'm never going back in that hole again. And I don't want my children to even go in that hole. I want them
Right.
to learn from the beginning. And that's when I talk to the girls about you get your credit, but you don't use it.
Yeah.
Use
It's
it to your advantage.
it's called trade line. You allow them to be on your trade line is what it's called.
Hmm.
And it's funny because I did the same for both of mine. I took one and put them on one credit card, one on the other, taught them
Hmm.
how to use it, what our utilization was. And then after a while, they both were able to get their own at a good interest rate. And see, that's something else we don't pay attention to is
Yeah.
interest rates.
And I'll tell you what else, interest rates, annual fees,
Yes.
and membership fees, things like that. I think my first credit card, I was just so excited. Oh, I got a credit card. I didn't read the fine print,
Yeah.
and making more than a minimum payment. And then, like, when it comes to my car, I actually pay that every 2 weeks.
Okay. And what's the advantage of that?
In the end, you actually lower the amount you pay because if the interest compounds monthly, you kind of cut that interest off every 2 weeks.
Right.
And eventually you can pay your car off a little sooner. I like to, my next goal is to get to the point where I do that with my house. So I'm working towards it, but
And I know you'll get there. I know that spreadsheet is already in the works to get there. But,
yes.
Keisha, it's so important that you talk about little things like paying, if you get paid every 2 weeks, if you can't pay your car note every 2 weeks,
Mhm.
those type of things, we don't realize how much interest we pay on things. And like you said, sometimes we just so excited to get credit that
Mhm.
we have to take whatever they give us. And you hear people with predatory lending paying 20 and 30% interest. That's ridiculous. And it's all because we don't take the time to educate ourselves. Is there anything you read or watched or did to help educate yourself when you made up your mind you were going to get yourself together?
I think it was just listening to other people who were in the situation I wanted to be in.
Hmm.
So I can't really say there was anything I can remember that I read. It was just learning from my mistakes
Right.
and then making a goal that my children wouldn't repeat the same mistakes. And I'll tell you another thing I learned is that I always thought to get loans from the credit union, oh, you had to have perfect credit. No, you can get a car loan. I thought you only had to get your car loan from the dealer you buy the car. That was another thing I learned. So I learned that I can just go to the credit union that I've been with for years and get a loan through them with a
Right.
lower interest rate. I also
Yes.
learned about refinancing for a lower interest rate, as your situation improves. And so it's just little things I've learned along the way.
Oh, and I tell you, those have been some nuggets. So you got Deja. and Kassar. They bought their houses. So
Mhm.
what's next for you all, or what's next for them?
Well, the next thing I want to do is start looking at some rental property.
Okay.
My husband and I have been talking. We want to buy some rental property, some investment property. And the reason that's important to me is because I know sometimes people have made mistakes and it makes it hard for them to rent somewhere and
Right.
they end up living with a friend or a cousin, and it's not the best situation. So I would really like to have housing where I can offer people another chance.
That's awesome. And speaking of another chance, there's something else you do that amazes me. You are a foster parent.
I am.
How important is it? First of all, help people to understand what a foster parent is, question one. And then important is it for African Americans to become foster parents?
Basically, I tell people I'm the stand-in when there's a child that's going through a situation at home where it's just not the right time for them to be there. I like to be the calm in the storm of their life.
Okay.
So everybody in my house, you get treated like you're mine. You get fussed at the same, you get loved on the same, you get fed the same.
Right.
But I really think it's important in the African American community because I mean, I don't have anything against different races raising other
Right.
children. However, I know my workers have told me that especially Black married couples are very, very rare. So for us, it was the importance of my husband. He wanted to show a young man this is what a father does.
Right.
Father goes to work every day. A father will come to your games. A father plays with you in the yard, takes you to the park. Fathers are good things. So when you get
Yes.
older, you'll want to be a father. He also likes to show them what a husband is. A husband supports his wife. He loves his wife. He protects his wife. You know, they see him cook. They see him clean. They see him do laundry. They see us work together as a team.
Mm.
And that's something we feel like a lot of children may not have exposure to because of their backgrounds and, whatever situation they're coming to. So
Right.
our thing is if we can change the view of marriage or family for just one kid, then we've done our job.
Yeah. And it's kind of sad because when we were kind of growing up and watching TV, you had the Cosby Show, you had
Hmm.
shows like that where you seen family units. He was a doctor, she was a lawyer, the
Right.
kids were educated. I don't watch much TV now, but I don't really see that I can think of. And like I said, I don't watch much TV, but you see all the other type of stuff, and it's like,
Hmm.
what are we feeding the next generation? Even in this
Exactly.
time of civil unrest and all that's going on, the other day we were talking about D'Angelo and his little buddy, and how we talked about racism, which I always says racism is a disease. Are you sick? Because it's
Hmm.
something that's taught. And his little buddy is Caucasian.
Hmm.
And tell us the story about them trying to fool the teacher one day.
Oh my gosh, that was so funny. So it was twin day or something, and his friend's parents called and said, "Hey, they want to dress alike because they're going to trick the teacher and see if she can tell who's who." They were like in kindergarten, so we played their outfits, and they just thought it was so funny at the bus stop. They couldn't wait to get to school, and I think we had told the teacher ahead of time, so she played along too.
Right.
But it just shows the innocence that the the kids are taught. They
Yes.
didn't care. They just thought that because they had on Bengal jerseys and camouflage shorts, the teacher would not tell them apart.
Right. And
Yeah.
and and Keisha, that's so key because when you think about what's going on in the world today, and it's like, nobody's saying other lives don't matter, but until Black lives matter, it
Mhm.
shouldn't be no lives matter. And not that we're being political, but the bottom line, it comes down to a human aspect. We're all human. And
Exactly.
when two little kids play together and you ask them what's the difference, and they say nothing, he's my friend, that lets you know that somewhere from being a kid to an adult, somebody planted that disease in their mind
Mhm.
that this person is different. Don't trust them. Don't do them.
Right.
And before anybody says, well, what about black on black crime? Yeah, there's all kind of things that come when you're gentrified, when you're oppressed, and that doesn't make an excuse. But let's start with the first thing. Let's get one monkey off our back before we can get some of the other ones off.
Exactly.
And I just commend you being a single mother for those years. You opened yourself up for love. You found a wonderful man. You all are doing some great things to show future generations what is possible. If they had to write your life story just from
Oh,
where you are now, what would that title be?
I don't know. Benny still teases me, calls me Superwoman all the time.
Yeah.
Because in addition to that, one of the other things that we're very avid about is volunteering in our community. Because that's another thing I feel like I really, as a people, we need to do better.
Yeah.
I know my community, I want to say maybe it's 40% African American. However, when I do the events or when they ask for volunteers, that percentage is not being represented at all.
Yeah.
So we're trying to change that image. So we're kind of known around the community. People know we like to volunteer. We love our community, and you
Right.
show this love by giving of yourself.
It's funny when you think about community. Me and a previous guest, we talked about growing up in Kennedy Heights, Silverton,
Hmm.
Pleasant Ridge, and how close knit those communities were. And I remember you called her Grand, which was my mother. We lived
Hmm.
on the corner, and people would throw their trash out all the time, and she would go make us clean it up. And I'd be like, I ain't do it. She said, but this is where you live. It's a representation of you.
Exactly.
And to this day, Keisha, no matter where I'm at, if I see trash on the ground, I'll pick it up. If I'm pumping my gas and there's trash around, I'll get my glove and pick it up because
Hmm.
I feel like any space I leave should be better than when I found it, whether it's my space or
Exactly.
not. And I say for you and Benny are making such an impact in those foster kids' lives because, like you said, they're coming out of tumultuous situations and you don't know what the situation is between mom and dad, if they were together, not together, but you all don't care. You see
Hmm.
kids and you love them unconditionally. How rewarding has that been for you? Because I know you have some that call you ma. They don't see no difference. It's just ma. Just like you said, one of y'all, they yell your name, they looking for you. How does
Oh
that make
yeah.
you feel when you get that love back that you've given out from somebody so innocent?
Well, and I'll tell people all the time, I'm not gonna say it's always easy. There's good days and bad days, but with the children you gave birth to, there's good days and bad days. But
Yes.
and kind of a combination of our previous conversation. One of the ones that calls me Ma happens to be blonde hair, blue eyes, and the looks we get in the store, he does not care. Like if I remember my husband took him to the restroom and they were finding me in the store. I found him before he found me because I heard Mom. He doesn't care. He'll hold my hand, hug on me, kiss on me. He doesn't care. He doesn't even realize our skin is different. He
Right.
knows I love him. I feed him. I take care of him. That's all he cares about.
Yeah. So before we wrap up, there's a tradition in the Miller household. My wife cannot stand it, and that is Monopoly.
Oh God.
Anybody that knows the Millers, you do not sit at the Monopoly table if you're not
Unless you're
serious.
there for hours, you're ready to sit there for some hours if you do.
And we don't care the age. If you sit down at the table, it's on. Your
Hmm.
your father, my oldest brother Jeff, he instilled such a competitiveness in all of us that when you play a game, it ain't just for funds. You play to
Right.
win. And how do you feel like that's? And I know you're like my wife. You're very loving and nurturing and kumbaya. Let's all get along. But how has that helped you in your career? Because I mean, you were a single mom, very intelligent. You went back to school. You got your degrees and everything. How do you feel like that? One, that sense of community and environment, but that competitiveness helped fuel you to get to where you are today.
Well, I'll tell you one thing. I can't remember which degree it was I was working on, but I had to take some classes either on the evening or weekend based on when it was offered. And I remember I called up a couple of people and I said, "Hey, I need your help. I need my children. I need somebody help." Well, this is before, online school
Right.
was really a thing. And I remember I sat down, made a spreadsheet, and I had a rotation of people that would keep my kids. Because I think it was like an early Saturday morning class.
Okay.
And so in the rotation, I would drop my kids off somewhere Friday night so I can get up, go to class on Saturday morning. And I couldn't have gotten my degree without that community.
Yes. And so the competitiveness, how has that helped you?
Um, I don't think I'm super competitive. I think I'm hard on myself. I
Yeah.
have goals that I feel like I want to achieve, and I get mad at myself like if I don't achieve a goal that I want to achieve. But I think the most important thing is doing your best, because
Hmm.
like you said at Monopoly, don't sit down at that table and you're gonna have play, because you're gonna either get put out the game or you're gonna get lose and get talked
Yeah.
about. So for me, I don't like to do things halfway.
Yeah. And one thing about Monopoly with our family, so sometime me, Kendall, and Kayla play, like I said, Kim won't play. We will bankrupt you, put you back in the game, and bankrupt you again.
Yeah.
And nobody, like you said, nobody wants to be talked about. As I sit here and look at you and hear you talking, I go through my mind. You remind me so much of grandma mother. Just the wisdom, the looks, the compassion, the creativity that you possess. And as we wrap up, is there anything that you're doing, anything that you would like people to become a part of? I know you part of a sorority and you all do things. So is there anything, and if so, let them know how they can get in touch with you or how they can become a part of it or how they can get involved. Just whatever's on your heart. Let's just share that.
Well, I will talk a little bit about my sorority. One of the reasons I looked at a graduate sorority, I have a couple friends who are graduate members, but the reason I chose Gamma Phi Delta, besides the fact that a friend approached me about it, they wanted to form a chapter here in Cincinnati. Not a lot of people had heard about it, but it's different in that you do not have to have a 4-year degree. And that really appealed to me, because even though I do meet that qualification, I
Right.
thought about all the women I know that could make wonderful contributions to the community, that a 4-year degree just didn't work out in their life plan,
Right.
be it because of children or funds or what have you. But regardless, if you are an esthetician, you can be an STNA, cosmetologist. If you've completed some specialized training, then you're eligible. And you can get more information at gammaphideltacincy.com.
All right. Thank you. Anything you want to share outside of that? Maybe just anything, because I want to make sure I give you a chance. You've answered all my questions, but I just want to make sure you get a chance to speak anything that's on your heart.
I can't think of anything else. Like
Okay.
I said, I will say, I tell people all the time, so many people have told me, "Oh, I've thought about fostering." And I'm like, "Don't think about it. Do it."
Right.
That is something that I would love to see more families become foster families, because you think about it, how do you grow? How do you learn? Where did your traditions come from? The
Right.
family.
No, so true.
And a lot of people, the first thing I hear is, "I'll get too attached." Oh well. So attachment means love.
Right.
And love is what's important. So don't focus on your hurt and your attachment. Focus on this little person that comes to you maybe in the middle of the night, because they can come 12, 1 in the morning. Focus on how do they feel right now?
Right.
What do they need? They need somebody that's safe, loving, that cares about them, and you can be that person. And if they leave you in 6 weeks, 6 days, 6 months, it doesn't matter. You made an impression in that little person's life where things were scary and unsure, and you gave them that sense of peace.
That's awesome. One last question. How can
Mhm.
people start the process of becoming a foster parent? Is there a website or somebody they can
Mm,
talk to?
It's going to vary by state, but I know
Okay.
in Cincinnati, there are several agencies. The agency I'm with is called Lighthouse Youth Services, and I just picked them because when I fostered before I got married, that was the agency I was with.
Okay.
So I would say do your research, talk to people. Most of them have orientation classes that you can attend. Everything's free, and just ask the hard questions.
Definitely. Well, Nicole, I thank you so much for taking
You're
time out of your
very
busy day. And I just want you to know I love you. Always been super proud of you.
Thank you.
And I'm just thankful that you were able to be on Conversations with Brent today.
Well, thank you. I look forward to sharing it on my social media account.
And what is your social?
Oh my gosh. Well, I'm just Keisha Allen on Facebook.
Okay.
Nothing fancy, no special things. And on Instagram, I am GPD Monarch 2.0, because
Okay.
that is my line name.
Okay. Good deal. So if you have questions about anything we discussed, you can always hit
Mhm.
me on social at BK3Mill on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. and I will put you in touch with my wonderful, awesome niece, Nicole. I love you. Tell everybody we send our love and prayers.
Thank you. Love you.
All right. Talk to you soon.
Bye-bye. All
Bye-bye.
right. Bye.